Says that I'm now live on Facebook. So let's see.
There you go.
Yep. It hasn't come up on the Facebook page yet because there's always a delay that is there. But yeah. Okay, come on, come on, come on. You should be coming up on. It says that I was there. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to refresh it. Refresh my Facebook
Your
page.
show will go live in 5 seconds. Four, three, two, one.
Okay, we're go.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again tonight on the Sedona Connection. Glad to be with you again this week. Last week I had some travel complications coming home from Toronto, and there was nothing really urgent to do in the program last week. But I am back this week, and I have a different program this week, and I'm really looking forward to being with you here tonight. And this is going to be an interesting program. Now, this is what I call future development for issues, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for now, thank you, everybody, for joining me here tonight. This is the August 29th broadcast, and it is 6 p.m. on the West Coast, and it's 9 p.m. on the East Coast here in the United States. And that means, yes, it is 6 p.m., but I'm not in my home tonight, as you can see. Well, I have to be somewhere tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. in the South Phoenix area. So basically, I'm staying in a hotel in the Phoenix area tonight because otherwise I'd have to get up and leave my house at 3 a.m. because it's where I have to be tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. is 3 hours from Sedona. Here and right now, I'm only about 35 minutes away. So, but that's it. With that, Blanca, how are you doing this fine evening?
Doing very well, Dave. Very well. Everything sounds clear. When we were doing the check, we would hear an echo, but I'm hearing fine, so I'm not hearing any kind of echo at all.
Yep, everything seems to be going very good here tonight. So we seem to be doing well. Is there anything you would like to share with us tonight before we? I don't have a whole lot to say, but let me just say this. I'll make a few announcements. Yes, September 8th, I have a workshop here in Sedona. We still have plenty of seats left, and I'm now starting to integrate some of this new material into the workshops. Where I've talked about in the past the importance of understanding what is this heart consciousness, why we live in a holographic world, and tonight you're really going to see what is called the culmination of that message, because as we start moving into our potential reality because of understanding the world that we really live in, when we understand that it's basically a holographic, quantum based world, and how the power of our human heart, how that affects the things around us and the things that we get to do. And tonight I really get to key in on that, on something that you're really going to be interested in, and that's the learn process. I am incorporating some of this now into the workshops. So for those of you that have been there, you might want to come. There's something new. And September 8th here in Sedona. 2 weeks after that, I'm back to Amsterdam. I will be in Amsterdam in Europe. I had promised the people there I would come back after about a year, and it is about 1 year, and I'm looking forward to that. In the next couple of days, I will be posting the Amsterdam workshop to be open for registration. And on the Sedona workshop, as I mentioned in the newsletter, I'm going to have a guest with us. His name is Robert Dunlap. Now, Robert is a finance specialist par excellence. He has extensive experience in working in international finance and how to work through the issues of how he has in the past moved very large sums of money across international borders. And he has really delved into understanding the whole cryptocurrency process. And there is, I should say, those of us, those that I'm with here with my organization, with him, and then also with the M's, we're promoting this one cryptocurrency called Meta One Coin. And what's different about the Meta One coin is it's asset backed, which means it can never lose its value lower than the point of the assets that back it up. And that's quite different than most of the others that are out there, because whether you go to Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin, the three big, they're all kind of like fiat currencies. They could lose their value overnight if the public decided that they didn't want to put any more value into them. And this whole cryptocurrency process, it's kind of like we're in what is called the Wild West stage. It's still pretty crazy out there, and there's a lot of crazy things that are going out there, and the prices really fluctuate. And this is somewhat duplicating what happened in the dot-com bust of the late 1990s. You had all of these dot-com companies coming out, and money was being poured into them. And then the strong survived and the weak faded away. And the strong we see today is, the Microsoft, the Amazons, and the Googles, and the stuff like that, and the Facebooks. Those were the really strong dot-com companies that have done very, very well. Well, we're anticipating the same thing beginning to happen in the cryptocurrency industry. And obviously, those that are going to survive, to me, are those that are going to be asset-backed, because they'll start getting the support from Wall Street when Wall Street gets to start putting money into these currencies. Now, Robert Dunlap, he is a specialist in that area. He's very knowledgeable. He is going to be with us at the workshop in Sedona. He'll also be available for any questions about understanding this cryptocurrency process and how you can, invest in it. Now, obviously, we're going to say you do whatever it is you want to do. It's your choice. But obviously, we are going to be promoting that Meta One coin. And I'm on the board. There's a number of us that are on the board of directors, and I am on the board for the Meta One coin. So that's the announcements that I have, is that September 8th, Robert's going to be with us in the regular workshop and bringing in the new material. And 2 weeks after that, I'm going to be in the Amsterdam. And if you go onto my website, I also have 3 other posted dates for Oakland, Orlando, and Seattle are the 3 following that will take me up until into November. So with that, Blanca, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we go into the program?
No, other than that's a pretty cool addition for the Sedona workshop. I mean, the cryptocurrencies are really going to be part of our future, and so anytime one has access to someone who's really in the know about it, whether they participate in the opportunity or not, it's always good to get more education and get their questions answered. So that's going to be a nice opportunity, Dave, for the folks there who do sign up for the Sedona workshop.
The cryptocurrency industry is not going away. It's not going to go away, folks. It's basically a demand that is coming from the people. It's being supported by the people on a very broad basis. And the reason that I'm a supporter of it is because if you've been with me for any period of time, you understand that this, what is called this current central banking system, the Federal Reserve central banking system, they have to be neutered. And that's the term that I use. It doesn't mean that, you kill them, they go away and they're totally destroyed. No, they lose their power. And that's the issue, is they lose their power. And the cryptocurrencies is going to be one of the primary instruments and tools to basically minimize their power, and how the power that and control over they have over the money supply system, basically around the world, in so many words. Because what we don't think about is that every time you and I do a financial transaction, there is always a bank in the middle. If you want to make a financial transaction, let's say you're going to purchase something, you're going to write a check, which goes through a bank. You're going to use a debit card or a credit card, which goes through a bank. Or you're going to use cash, which the bank supplies and it goes through them. So the bank is always in the middle of every single financial transaction that we do. And the cryptocurrency industry eliminates the middleman, the bank. Because if I wanted to send some, let's just say Bitcoin to you, all I have to do is have your Bitcoin address, and I can go into what is called, my Bitcoin account, and I can transfer Bitcoin directly to you, and we have totally bypassed the central banking system. And so when we start putting the masses of our funds into the cryptocurrencies and letting them sitting in banks, we've reduced their power, and they know it, they're aware of it, and yes, it's subject to change, and yes, it's still in the Wild West stage, but it's not going to go away. And there's a lot of us that are very supportive of that, and that's why I've been, talking about it as well. So, okay, with that then, Blanca, anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I think that's it. It's going to be a great workshop.
Yep. Okay. All right. For tonight's program, I've been talking about what is called, the coming new age and the new era that is coming our way. In some of the recent programs, I had talked about what was called this holographic world that we live in. And that kind of sounds kind of crazy at first, but now you're getting absolute, very verifiable, solid scientists that are even coming on the Discovery Channel and saying this world that we live in is a hologram. It's a giant hologram. It's not physical. Even Einstein said decades ago that there is no such thing as matter. Matter doesn't really exist. And things that seem and feel or appear to be solid, it's because the vibration of their energy has slowed down to be perceptible to our five physical senses. So when you take the concept that the world is a hologram, and then I've been talking about also what was called the power of the heart. There's a what they call a second brain that is right there in the area of our heart, and this brain, A.R. Borden calls it the enteric brain. It's basically the intuitive brain, very, very powerful. And a couple of weeks ago on the program, where Gray Braden had talked about that the energy, because they can put those little sensors on your heart or on your head, and they can measure what is called the energy frequency coming off of those areas, that the energy that comes out of the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the energy that comes out of your brain. That's a lot. And so it's this powerful heart energy that we're learning how to tap into. Well, with that, tonight I'm going to talk about how you basically combine those to produce this process that A.R. Borden talked about that is called manifest production observership. Now, I've shared this video on the program here a couple times. I always share it in the workshop, and you can go on YouTube and you can find it yourself. And it's called the double slit experiment. This is a very, very famous experiment that was done that basically says the observer, i.e. us, the consciousness of us as humans, basically determines as observers what it is that we are going to create, i.e. the observer, the energy that comes out of our brains and our hearts impacts at the quantum level what we call matter, what is called the electrons that make up these the parts of these atoms that make up what we call substance and matter. We produce that. And so in essence, what all of these scientists are saying is we are the ones that are creating our reality. Everything that we experience, everything that we have, we are unconsciously creating. That is what we are doing through the power and the energy of our being. And A.R. Borden, remember, he's the scientist that I've talked about, that I had gotten to know through Michael Lee Hill, and Borden was considered to probably be the brightest and smartest man in the world. He had developed a group of scientists that had developed what was called the Life Physics Institute out of California, and they were doing research and essay papers around all of this, and he had developed a term that was called the manifest production observership. And that means as observers, we are manifesting and producing things of our reality, is what we are. And in that process, there was a description of what he called LERM, Light Encoded Reality Matrix. Now, I'll get into that a little bit more, but here's the bottom line is, LERM as a process of MPO, Manifest Production Observership, they had developed the capability, and all group of the 18 scientists there, that they could within 3 to 5 seconds make anything physically appear out of thin air. But they understood the physics behind that. And in a number of his essay papers, even Borden had basically come down and said, this is what Jesus did. When he went out and fed the 5,000, he has these 5 little fishes and loaves, and he takes it and it just keeps on multiplying and multiplying because he understood how to do that. And it's tapping into this very deep heart production energy that is within us. Now, that's what I'm going to get into in a little bit. I want to give a little bit of background leading up to that. We are in a process that we are going through what is called a shift and change of era, a shift and change of time. If you study any of the indigenous cultures and their understandings around faith and the process of time, whether it's in biblical terms or even other indigenous cultures, they always understood that we would go through an era, a period of time, and then things that during that period, they, as humanity, or what's called our human evolvement, our human development, we would kind of be flat for a while. We would table and plateau. And then all of a sudden, over a process of maybe a couple hundred years, we would take this massive leap. And we'd leap up to a new level of what was called consciousness and awareness and our development as a human race. And then we stay there for a period of time. Well, we're going through another one of those. And we started this process maybe 150 to 180 years ago as we started moving into what was called the Industrial Revolution. Just go back 180 years and look at the difference of our world today and what it was back then. In the areas of technology, transportation, the medical industry, the ability to produce items of physical means, travel, we've made massive, massive leaps in the last 180 years in contrast to the previous 10,000. And that is, we have gone through up into what is called the industrial age, and we moved into the information age. We are now ready for the second part of this massive leap. But this time, the shift we're going through is not what's on the external world, but it's what's on the internal world. It's back, the last advent of the exploration of space is no longer outer space, but it's inner space, is the new exploration of where we are going. We are going to learn how to go within. And in the workshops, I described that we're moving into what is called the intuitive age. We have pretty much reached our apex of what is called the information age, because we have now, with the capability of the internet, we basically have the whole world available to us by just going online with as little as a smartphone, a cell phone. You can be in touch with the whole world, and you can get on the internet, and you can research and do almost go anywhere you want in communication. You can carry on live video conferences with people halfway around the world in real life time. That's a massive shift and change in information. And all of that has been what is called a part of the external world. We're now going to go within. And we're going to learn how to go into the inner world, get in touch with our feelings and our emotions, and these very powerful energies that comes out of our hearts and our brains, and what is called the power of consciousness and understanding, and what we can begin to produce out of that. When I was a young boy and I was in school and we were taught, science. Now, today, the children today are being a little bit different, but anybody around my age, or even up to 15 to 20 years younger, when we were in school, we were taught Newtonian physics, Newton-based physics. Physics where things are solid, they're etched in, the DNA doesn't change, your genes don't change, you can't change the substance of things around you, and everything is pre-programmed and solid from a basis of science. And then quantum physics comes around and blows that away, because quantum physics is based upon energy. And energy is fluid. Energy can shift and change. You can always change energy, but you can't destroy energy. And that means, because everything in this world, in this universe, is energy based. It's back what Tesla said. If you really want to understand this universe, get to know energy, frequency, and vibration. Because those three are the things that determine everything that goes on in our universe: energy, frequency, and vibration. And quantum physics is what describes that. And a lot of quantum physics is at the level where it is beyond what we would call time and space in how it works and operates. Newtonian was based in time and space. Quantum physics moved beyond that. So in an era of our consciousness, in an era of what is called our human development, we are moving from being Newtonian based in our consciousness, where we are becoming aware of the potential of becoming what I call holonomic, quantum-based beings. By holonomic, it's a reflection again that everything in the universe is holographic. It is not solid. It is not physical. It is quantum-based, massive moving energy that has the ability to shift and change. And with that, its limitation is only based upon our thought process, is what it is. And as we learn how to reprogram ourselves, we have the ability to move into this holonomic, quantum-based world of the things that we are able to produce. That's the shifts and changes that are coming our way. And I always come back and I give the examples. The best early prototype example for this was the life of Jesus. And I say that because, yes, We live in a world where we are still basically a Judeo-Christian ethic-based world that has framed much of our values and our belief systems and stuff like that. So he's always out there, and as you read through just the Gospels, you see the life that he lived and the miracles that came out of him. We didn't understand all that. We didn't know what that meant. Well, we're now moving into this new era where we get to understand that. Even in the Gospels, Jesus said, everything that I do, you can do it too, and even more. He came right out and he said that. And so for him, it was always, it was always evolved around the process of faith or believing. What's really interesting is, as remember, most of you know, I had a master's degree in biblical studies, and the New Testament was written in its original language, was in what was called, basically Koine Greek, an ancient form of Greek. And you always do the word studies, and you begin to understand what was really there. And there's something that's very interesting around belief and faith. The root word in the Greek, they're both the same word. One is patouo, while the other is patouomon. And these two words were their base, their root is the same. The only difference is one is the verb and the other is the noun. Faith is the noun and believe is the verb. So basically what it means is believing is this process of action and activity, predominantly conscious activity, that allows you to develop to have a position of faith that produces things beyond what we call the normal. And we used to, when Jesus did all those things, we called them miracles because they were miraculous to us. We didn't understand how he did those things. Well, in this new age and era that we're moving into, we now are coming across scientists who can tell us the physics behind that, why it happens and how it works and what makes it develop and turn into what it does. These are the scientists that can explain why they can create things out of thin air, why they can do what we would call the miraculous and the ability to do the things that they did. And it's all energy based, again, is what it is. So as we are going through this shift and change of this new era, moving into this new era, there are what I call 5 stages that we will go through. Now, these stages will go on for decades, if not even a couple hundred years. There will be some people that will learn it early, and those are basically going to be the trailblazers. And I put myself into that category because I am already starting to work on this learning process, and I don't know hardly very, very few people that are actively doing that. And if you are an active listener and participant with me in these programs and the workshops, you're going to want to come along with me because we want to be able to moving into doing the things that Jesus did. And we can understand it. And because we have the capability of the internet now, we have the ability to spread this on a massive level where thousands and thousands of people will begin to pick this up and move along with it. And so there will be some that are on the early stage of this development. There will be some that won't believe it until there's a massive amount of people that are actually doing it, and they'll have to say, well, there must be something to it. And there is. There is a process in this. And all I can say is that the vast majority part of my life, of everything I've been going through for the last 5 to 9 years, I have this deep sense of feeling that it's all prepared me for this time, of everything I've been learning, because this unfoldment process, this what I call this evolving process of our involvement of our consciousness, it takes time. It unfolds over a process of time is what it does. And I continue to keep learning more and more. And for those of you that have been around me and come to a number of my workshops, you can see how every 6 to 8 months I seem to be coming up with something new and different. And I'm just a little bit different than what I was 8 to 10 months before. And it's almost like almost every 2 years I'm entering into a new life. And that's what it feels like for me. Is because I continue to learn and grow, and I'm fascinated by this unfoldment. So this is a process of moving into the new era, is what is called the evolvement and the expansion of humanity. In the Wingmaker's material, James Mahu says that humanity, the human race, for thousands and thousands of years has lived in what he calls a survival consciousness. Life was about surviving. Life was about making sure you had enough food to survive. Life was about making sure that you had enough power, military might, or other type of might to survive over an enemy who may want to kill you. Life was about acquiring enough money so that you would be in a survival mode, so that you would have the power of using money to basically make sure that you were more powerful than someone else so that they couldn't overtake you. The vast majority of the things that we did and where we spent our time throughout the day was basically different levels of the whole issue around survival. We were a survival-based consciousness beings is what we were. Life was about surviving. Well, what James Mahu says, in this shift and change, we're now moving from survival consciousness into what is called, he calls expansion consciousness. We are beginning to free ourselves from fear of needing to survive. We're beginning to free ourselves because we're acquiring more and more information about the simplicity of surviving, and life isn't so much about surviving, that we now get to expand how we think. We get to expand our consciousness, we get to expand our imagination, we get to expand our awareness. So we're moving from survival-based beings to expansion-based beings, and that's what this era is all about. And in this era of expansion, as I said, we're going to go through 5 major stages. Some people, and I put myself into this camp because I'm very diligent and adamant about doing this work, this will take a couple decades. For the vast majority of humanity, it's going to take anywhere from 60 years to 200 years to go through all 5 of these stages. The first stage, we're in it now. We're all in it now. I should say anybody that's a part of what we would call the modern world, that is not the people that are not living on less than $10 a day out of what they call economic survival, but the people that are living in what is called educated worlds, people that are well educated, that have formal education, the people that live in the worlds where there is production of economies, production of material and jobs and stuff like that. Those of us in that world, we are now into the first step of what is called the information stage. The information stage, the massive change that came to us, the biggest item that created that change was the internet. The internet brought a massive, massive change to our lives. When we go back prior to the internet, our information was based on the sources that were feeding it to us. And our primary sources of information were education, media, and entertainment industries. Those 3 industries were the primary sources of our what we would call our information, and they had massive influence on our lives. Education industry told us what we could learn and what basically we would do there. The entertainment industry would form our beliefs and our patterns of how we would get along with each other. And then the media industry was telling us what was going wrong in our world. Now, there were some other subgroups in there, and one of the strongest subgroups was the subgroup of religion. But yet still, religion was still something that came to us usually in an education form or in a media form that came through their sources. What that meant was those sources of information were channeled into a very small funnel, and we were dependent upon the limited small number of people that were giving it to us. When you get to the massive control of this world and what we call the cabal controllers, if they could control the entertainment industry, which they do, if they could control the media industry, which they pretty much do, and if they could control the education industry, which they pretty much do, then they were the controllers of what was coming our way. And so what that meant is we were always living, it was called a limited perspective of information. And along comes the internet. And in the old stages, when we didn't have the internet, if something would come up with information that was called conspiracy thinking or way out there or weird or different, they were never able to grasp or get a hold of to be able to bring this out to the masses to convince them of the truth of what was being stated. they would be shut down. Their books would basically end up being banned, or basically they would be made fools out of through those, the media or the entertainment industries would castigate them as crazy. So people didn't take them seriously. Well, now with the internet, and with the internet at a speed capability that it has today, that we can download anything even on our cell phones to get information, we have bypassed those information controllers. We have been able to bypass and get truth from each other. I live in Arizona, and right now what's going on is the whole issue, Senator McCain, of his passing, and I'm just comparing what is coming out of the mainstream media in contrast to what is coming out about John McCain in the alternate media. And these are two different worlds, folks. And it's not that the alternate media can have some fake news in it too. Yes, it can. But there's lots of stories that are coming out about what was the other side of John McCain. See, in the what I call the conventional world, the media controlled world, everything about him was good, nice, and how good he was, and how he got along, and everything he did well. Well, most of you know, remember, I'm a former senator. I was a state senator in Washington State, so I understand the political world. And the politicians that were always out front, which means they were out there in the media a lot, the vast majority of them lived what was called a public life versus a private life. They lived what was called the conventional world versus the shadow world. And Obama had it, the Bushes had it, Hillary had it, John McCain had it. The majority of these politicians that were very notable, almost all of them had what was called the conventional world of who they appeared to be versus the shadow world of who they appeared to be. And John McCain did a lot of good stuff in the conventional world. I don't deny that. There were some things about him that was very positive in that world. And that's what the media is talking about. And then you have the shadow world side of John McCain that the people didn't hear about. They didn't know that much about. And you can go do your own research. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not here to castigate that. I'm just saying that's a very common perspective of what goes on there, the conventional world versus the shadow world. Well, that's what's happened, that's what always went on for us. But now that we have the internet, we have the ability to learn the truth. We have the ability to learn the truth of the shadow world as well as the conventional world. We have the ability to learn the truth of what's really going on out there. Remember, if we were still in the conventional world, there would be no such things as UFOs, and everybody who had experiences with UFOs, you were all crazy. In spite of the thousands and millions of people that are experiencing them and seeing them. That's changed. And we get to now talk with each other and communicate with each other about the experiences that we have. So the internet has been the biggest gift to us in this first stage of us expanding. In this era of expanded consciousness, the internet has given us the ability to learn more, to learn the truth, to see both sides of an issue, to be able to learn for ourselves, and then to share it with masses of others so that we're not put into a little tiny cubicle of being called conspiratists who are crazy or stupid about what you're talking about. It's interesting now as what you call conventional media talks about the conspiracy issues that are out there, and then the millions that react to it and says, we know something that's different. So we really get to see the contrast that is going on out there between the conventional world and the shadow world, and the internet has been the gift for us to do that. All I have to do is say, take a look at how the media is treating, President Trump. And I'm not going to get into pros and cons or negatives or positives on President Trump, but it's basically there is a conventional world presentation of Trump where the media is just really attacking him and castigating him. And then there's the shadow world of Trump. And it's not so much a shadow world, it's just the alternate world. What I like about Trump, there's no two sides out there. What you see is what you get. He's very real. And what he talks about is what you get that is real. The question is, who's going to report it and what spin are they going to put on it? But that's another story. I don't need to get into that. But so we see the advent of the first stage of our freedom of moving into this new era of a human evolvement of a human race was the advent of the information age and this information that is available to us. And in my opinion, we're pretty much at the top of the information age. Yes, we can have some new technologies that will come. Yes, we may be able to have faster internet. Yes, we may be able to have even smaller devices. But the availability is not going to take the quantum leaps that it's been taking in the past, because basically it's just going to be a continuing extension of what is already there. We have basically hit the apex of the information age because of what's available to us. And that internet, that's the first stage. The second stage is moving into financial freedom. And that's one of the primary things, the reasons why I am here, of these funds, these massive, massive amount of funds that are held by these dragon family elders throughout Asia. That is money that's beyond our comprehension. And this is asset-backed money in golds and various valuables that they have been collecting for thousands and thousands of years, and they've seen themselves as basically caretakers and guardians for those assets to be released to humanity at the right appropriate time. This is that time. This is the time that it is for us to be released. This is the shift in the era change that we are going through. And I have firsthand friendship contacts with these representatives of these families that will tell you about the bank accounts that they have that are beyond our comprehension. I mean, you're talking bank accounts with 30, 40, 50 zeros in them, and multiple bank accounts. And these are what are called off-record bank accounts. The public's not going to know about them. They're not out there, but the assets are there. I have not been in the caves and the bunkers to see personally the assets. I have been invited to go in, but had some things come up where a person was there was an assassination attempt on a person's life who was supposed to take me in. I've seen pictures that would just blow you away. It's just even hard to comprehend. And there's been a few of you who've attended my workshops that you have those photos as well. And you know of people who have been in those caves and bunkers. So the money is there, folks. The funding is there and the money is there. As we move through these stages of our evolvement, the first stage was the information of becoming awake and becoming aware. The second stage was the financial freedom stage, because the finances and money has been used as a slavery tool over us for thousands of years. When we have these elite controllers, those that we would refer to the cabal, that's the term that we have mostly used here, they have always used basically fear and slavery to be able to control the masses. And money is the predominant tool that they use to do that. It's the physical tool. If you can create lack, if you can create poverty for the masses and masses of humanity, and they need money to be able to have any type of a decent lifestyle, let alone to be in financial freedom, then you can control humanity. I would say, in my estimation, when you look at the massive population of the world, that people that are in what are called true financial freedom, which means that they have enough money to do what they want, when they want, and to go where they want, when they want, without restrictions, which means they have the access to pick up and learn and have anything that they want. They can go anywhere they want to go. They can acquire pretty much all of your basic necessities of living a very comfortable life. Doesn't mean you have to have money to buy, a Lamborghini, but you can buy a nice car, you have a nice home, you have food, all your basic necessities or modicum items of life. They have all the money to do all of that, and they never have to think about, can I afford this? And I'm going to take a shot at this. But I would say there's only about 2 to 3% of the world's population is in that place to do that. When you have close to 4 billion people on this planet living on less than $10 a day, now that's called survival finances of slavery. The vast majority of us live in a world where a lot of us have good jobs, but yet our jobs themselves are forms of slavery. Think about the fact if you're working a 40-hour work week, You probably get up 2 to 3 hours in the morning before you leave to go to work. You have your commute time. You go to work. You have your lunch time. You have your commute time coming home. And then you take care of your family and your kids and dinner. And the next thing you know, when everything is done, you maybe have 2 hours left in the day for you. So you only have about 1 to 2 hours a day to do what you want to do for you. And that means there's a very, very limited time, which means you end up being your time is a slave to taking care of everybody else. Working for your employer, taking care of your family, your children, or whatever it may be. So you have limited time. But the people who are in financial slavery, financial freedom, they have 24 hours a day to do what they want, when they want, and to learn what they want. Now, a lot of this moving into this new era for us, it takes work to spend time to do research, to do study, and to practice certain behavior issues to create this real shift and change for us. So the second stage is the financial freedom stage, so that we can now have millions and millions and millions of people who are financially free to shift and change the consciousness energy of our planet and to help move the other masses. So the releasing of these funds, yes, we are the ones that are going to get to be right on the very front, cutting edge of it. We are the trailblazers. But yet this is a process that's going to go on, folks, for a decade or two. It's not going to happen overnight when you look at the bigger picture of what all this is about. This is not about individuals getting rich for themselves. This is about having the ability to move into an expansion consciousness and getting to be the people who are helping to lead the way in that. So that second stage is financial freedom. The financial freedom then gives you the ability to have the time to do the work and the research of what I'm going to talk about now as the third stage. That third stage is moving into understanding of who we truly are as human beings. We live in a world, and you've heard me say this, and if you read the Neruda interviews, you will understand this, where we have been basically programmed. Yes, you heard that. There was a group of scientists that were appearing on the Discovery Channel, and their names escape me right off, but Neil deGrasse was basically the moderator, and he's talking to this other physicist, and he says, you're telling me that when you start going down and reaching down and getting to the very bottom, when we go from basically what is a material world down into the atoms and down into the quantum world, and then you get below that, you're telling me that everything in this world is basically one just big, huge, gigantic computer program. And he said, yep, because what we're finding below quantum physics is nothing but a bunch of ASCII computer programming code. Which means this whole world we live in is a simulated, holographic, illusion environment. It's like one big, gigantic, massive virtual reality experience. You know, you put these virtual reality goggles on and you can manipulate it. That's only a small, minuscule of what's really out there. That's the small comparison of what the world is that we're really experiencing. And we were programmed to be that way. So the whole world around us, when you understand quantum physics and you understand what is the structure of its components of energy, which is based out of light packets, and light and sound are what makes these different types of energy do the things that it gives us the appearance that it is. There's an algorithm process in all of that, and it's all basically based on mathematic components that makes it look and feel like a physical world when it's not. We've been programmed to believe that is reality. And by believing that is reality, we limit ourselves and we keep ourselves stuck in what I call the Newtonian world. If you want to live in a Newtonian world, fine. That's your choice. But in the Newtonian world, you're going to be limited, you're going to be a slave, you're going to experience a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of misery, and a lot of drama. Those are all the makeups of the Newtonian world because it's a world that keeps you in fear. Pain keeps you in fear. Anxiety keeps you in fear. Slavery keeps you in fear. And the list goes on. Those are all different components to keep us in forms of fear and slavery so they can keep us under control. There's been this quote that's been out there many, many times. The greatest fear of the cabal controllers is humanity waking up. And that's what we're doing. The information age, the internet age, was the process, the first stage of our waking up. Beginning to have financial freedom so you're not a financial slave of giving the massive amount of your time and energy to someone else so they can become wealthy while you're just a worker bee. Being freed from that is the second stage of our awakening process. And then that allows us to move into understanding who we truly are as holonomic, quantum-based beings. And when we understand that we live in a world that's just a hologram, when we understand that we live in a world of quantum energy, and when we understand that quantum energy is light-based, vibrational-based energy, and we as our beings are the same way, it begins to allow the expansion to explode, is what it does in so many terms. To expand ourselves, to expand our awareness, and to expand our capability, because we begin to learn that in a holographic, quantum-based energy world, there are no physical limitations. None. The physical, because why? Because the physical world is not real. It's not reality. We create our realities. If we believe it's real, if we want to believe it's a Newtonian-based world, then that's what we experience, and that's what we will have. But when we learn how to step into that it's a holographic, quantum-based, energy-based world, it opens up the capabilities of what is there. We've always, throughout history, we've had what are called spiritual masters or religious leaders or various sources that have always produced what we would call the paranormal, the miraculous. And a Newtonian-based world based on physics can't explain how that works and how it happens. It's like this is okay, this is where everything's, oh, that stuff, we don't know. I mean, and so they basically ignore it. But when we understand that the world is holographic, it gives us substance and base for all of that being able to happen and take place. Now, I want to lead up to that, to this here. A.R. Borden and his associates were the scientists that understood what I called the physics behind metaphysics. They were the brightest and smartest scientists in the world. And they started doing a lot of research in the last 10 to 15 years around the power of human consciousness and the physics that is behind it and what it does and what the capability it has to create. They had understood when you're dealing with holonomic, quantum-based energy that is not physical, that makes up everything in this world that has the sensations of being physical, and how it comes into existence, what creates it, makes it happen. When they understood the physics behind that, they were able to take that process and expand it. And expand it to the point where they understood that everything that is out there in this world is basically light-based. It's based off of light, quantum-based energy. And underneath that is also sound. Because we think that light is the basic foundation of everything in our universe, and it's really not. Sound is the very basic foundation, because sound itself can produce light. Light doesn't produce sound, but sound can produce light. It's the wave energies that are there when you're combining this light and sound energy that you have the ability to take what is called a template, which would be an image that is in our minds, and then create a holographic illusion of that. If I take this ink pen, I can close my eyes and I still have the image of the ink pen. I have a template of what it looks like in all of its full four dimensions, in a four-dimensional world. And I can take that and I can combine that with the consciousness process. And then what happens is it produces this. It has the feelings and the looks of being physical, but in reality, it's nothing more than a hologram of the energetic template that's in my mind. See, it's the consciousness and the power of the human consciousness that creates this holographic template. My 5 physical senses wants to tell me this is physical, but quantum physics tells me it's just a bunch of massive swirling energy that's all an illusion. It's a hologram based off of a template that has come from somewhere else, is what it is. Now, we still live in this world of form because we're still programmed to think that everything is physical. So yes, we still have to be real people. We have to live in a world of physicality. We have to live in the world of form until we learn how to get beyond it. And that's a process that takes decades and decades, folks. Okay, so that's another issue. But Borden's folks could take this and within 3 to 5 seconds could make it physically appear out of nothing, because they understood how to take the template within their minds, within the consciousness that they had, and to take that template and encode it with light. And when you encode a template with light, it produces the holographic picture or item. And that's how they could make anything appear. Now, here's his documentation, the essays that are on that. And it's not a simple process, folks. And I am just starting to learn this. I think this is something that's going to take me some months to get it under practice. But they were the examples. They says, we can do this. Not only can we do this. And we know how to do this. And we understand the physics behind how it works. And here's the essays that basically can describe that process. But there's a whole lot more. It's not just this. It's not a 1, 2, 3 step, boom, you got it. There's a whole lot of work that has to go on behind that. Now, before I go into this, I want to briefly mention, so stage 3 is moving into understanding that the world is a holonomic, quantum-based energy world, which means it removes the limitations of a Newtonian-based consciousness world, okay? And we learn how to do that, and we learn how to do the learn process. That's stage 3. Stage 4 is we take the next expansion step of that, and we move into basically being like Jesus was, in so many words, folks. We live in a world with unlimited potential. We live in a world that we have learned we've gone beyond the limitations of physicality. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have physical bodies. Yes, we still do, but we can go into a consciousness state because we've reprogrammed our unconscious minds where all this happens to say this is possible and you can do this. Because Borden's group were pretty much there. Borden had this one comment that he made with a friend of mine, Michael Lee Hill, and he had said that everything you saw in Star Trek 30 years ago, we do it all for real. They were the ones that could beam me up, Scotty, anywhere on the planet. They could teleport their bodies. They knew how that process worked. They could teleport their bodies. They were the best remote viewers in the world. They had the LERM capability where they could make anything appear out of anything, out of thin air, and other things like that. They had the ability to live beyond what was called the physical limitations of what we call the Newtonian world, and they learned how to do that. And so that is our 4th stage that we get to do in that, move into that with thousands and thousands, if not millions of people doing this. And then the 5th stage, and for some people this is going to take a couple hundred years, for others it may take us a couple decades. I don't know, but it's there for us. And the 5th stage is we move into what is called our full enlightenment beings, or what is called our light bodies. And the light body, the example was Jesus after the resurrection. Because you see, during that lifetime, he was living that 4th stage life and was working on moving into the 5th stage, and that crucifixion was his last step. That was his last test or trial or hurdle that he had to overcome to becoming a full, complete light body being. And that's what he did. And he said, here it is. You can do all of this. There's a way for you to do if you're willing to learn and you're willing to do the work. Now here's the key in all of this. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes a strong will, a willingness and a desire to do the work. Because the work that we have to do is unprogramming all of the old programming that's been with us for thousands and thousands of years that keeps us believing and thinking that and living as we're in a Newtonian world. And you have to undo all that. And the issue in all of that is basically undoing all the blocks. And that's why I talk so much about A Course in Miracles. And that's why I talk about Gary Renard's books that accompany that. Because that at the very foundation is what we're doing is we're undoing what is called the ego consciousness. It's the ego consciousness that keeps us in a Newtonian-based world. It's the ego consciousness that keeps us in what's called a physical-based world. It's the ego consciousness that restricts our ability to do all the stuff. And that ego consciousness has to be undone. It has to be healed. It has to be cleared. And when you do that, you expand your capacity. You expand this heart consciousness. You expand your ability to believe. You expand your ability to move. And instead of working so much on bringing all this new stuff into us, like I have to learn all this new stuff, I have to do all that stuff, I got to find some great wizard out there, some master, some spiritual guy who's going to teach me all this stuff. There's a real simple process in all this, folks. Undo the ego consciousness. And all of that stuff that you want will automatically come out because it's already a part of you. It's already a part of us. What is called that divine consciousness is already there within all of us. And we're just waiting for it to come out. But we have to remove the blocks for it to come out. So as we're moving into these stages, and this third stage, probability, the key to that is undoing the old ego consciousness, the old vibrational energy of low vibrational issues. Because of all the past lives that we have lived, we all did some very dumb, stupid, very low vibrational things. We all had lifetimes where we were basically the bad guy, the bad cop. And we created those memories, and memories carry energy. They're like data packets of information on a computer hard drive, and they're there. But they have a vibration to them. And in that vibration, in that memory-based vibration, it's very low-based frequency energy vibration that's still there as a vibratory form. And it's there residing within our DNA. When you heal that, when you release that, it comes out and allows the foundation of a higher vibration to rise up and come up to the surface. And then that gives us this capability to do these things. Now, let me talk about this LERM process. Light encoded reality matrix. In essence, being able to create stuff out of nothing. Borden Group did it. They did it for real. They understood it was a mental process and an energy-based process. And they understood it was you combining the frequency of your being, what they called the bio-mind. The combination of the physical bio body along with the mind. They had said your bio-mind had to be operating at a high enough frequency of energy to create a very high vibratory template coming out of your thought process. And it wasn't just the thoughts here, it was the thoughts here. Borden would talk about how every single cell in your body has its own energy production machine. It's a mind process of its own. Every single one of the billions and billions of cells we have in our body are like an energy machine. And if your base consciousness is still vibrating at low energy, low vibrational energy, it's affecting all the energy production of your cells, and you haven't cleared out and healed all your past stuff, then your whole bio-mind is still vibrating at a low vibrational energy. And he says it's the bio-mind energy that produces the energy of this template that goes out from you, that then attaches to the light that is out around you, And then you're taking that light and you're encoding it with the template from your mind that makes the hologram issue appear. And they could do that in 3 to 5 seconds. There was a couple things he said that were key. Number one, your whole mind and body has to be at peace. Because if you're not at peace, you've got too much drama thoughts and drama energy going on within your biomind, keeping you at a low frequency. You have to come to the place of peace. Now, if you do the central readings about A Course in Miracles, it's all about finding and living and experiencing the peace of God. And all of Gary Renard's books about that, the peace of God, coming to that state. And it's the forgiveness process that releases and lets go and undoes all the old stuff so that the new stuff, the new energy can come forward. That's why I talked about heart consciousness, this powerful energy that comes out of this heart. To release this powerful energy, your whole biomind has to be at peace. So Borden says, number one, you have to get yourself to being in a place of being a peaceful being. I've shared with you in the last couple programs that I've got this new Fitbit watch. And that Fitbit watch also tells me my heart rate. And I hadn't been paying much attention to my heart rate for a couple decades, or I always knew what it was whenever I go and see the doctor. And all of a sudden I got this thing and I thought, my gosh, my heart rate. It's dropped on average 7 to 8 beats per minute. And I was, first it kind of concerned me, and then I started talking with some friends and talking with some medical folks, and they said, no, the reason your heart rate has dropped so much is because you have a very strong, powerful vibration beating heart, but it doesn't have to beat as fast because your whole biomind's at peace. It's an indication of how peaceful you have become over these years. And it's because for 9 years I've been working on the whole basic lessons that are taught in Gary Renard's books and A Course in Miracles to bring yourself to the state of peace. There's different ways for you to get there. Some of it's your own forms of meditation, transcendental meditations, whatever it is. Whatever works for you, that's fine. But you can tell when you're in that place of peace because your body is relaxed. There isn't this drama that's going on. You're not getting these attacking drama thoughts. You're not arguing with stuff going out there. You're not paying much attention to the politics. Or it says if you're looking at it, you're just looking at it as an observer. You're not engaging in the politics. You're not arguing and fighting with Donald Trump or Barack Obama for that matter. You're not in an argument of debatable stage or state with them. It's just there. You've become the observer of what goes on around you versus the participant in your mind. First thing he says you got to do is be at the stage of peace. You have to calm down your whole biomind so when you start doing what is called vector intention, focusing on a specific thing that you want to bring about, that all of the energy of your body is increased. It's expanded. He says it's interesting. We all know we all have what is called this aura. It's the energy field that surrounds us. They have a scientific term for the aura. It's called basically the Meissner field. And they have equipment that can measure it. And I have friends that have the capability to see it. I have this one wonderful lady. She comes to my workshops and she'll tell me, she says, well, this is the size of your aura today. This is the color that it is. And the colors change. She says, sometimes it's this color, sometimes it's that color, sometimes there's a combination of the colors that are there. She just has that gift and that ability to do that. Well, the professionals will tell you the colors are usually based upon the frequency vibration that you have going on within you at the time in conjunction with the type of thoughts that you're thinking and producing. Color is energy based. It's frequency based, is what it is. Well, Borden's group, they could measure your Meissner energy field. And they basically said when you are in the learning process, you are at a state of peace, so you don't have other conflicting lower vibrational energies going on within you, and you are intensifying, expanding your biomind energy field, and it goes out. And it goes out, and it takes light packets that are out there around you, and it encodes those light packets. Light encoded reality, matrix. Can you imagine thousands of people being able to create anything out of anything, out of thin air? Imagine how we can do it, the influence that we get to have. But here's what's really interesting about this learn process. If you don't come at it with a high state of integrity, if you don't come at it from a place of what is giving, expansion, if you come at it from a position of greed, a position of power and control, and yes, there will be some who can still do that, still create it, and still be in that spot. You've taken low vibrational energies and you will expand that in your life. Let me just be very, very frank. You want to start doing this stuff? You better get your heart right. Have a powerful heart, consciousness, thoughts, and issues coming from you. Because if you do this from a place of power and a place of greed, all I can say is karma's a bitch in that case. Because you have expanded your lower vibrational energy that will overtake your whole being and produce that from you. I don't want to be in that state. Doesn't it make sense that something like this is designed to come from a place of love, from a place of expansion, from a place of caring, from a place of giving? Isn't that what this whole is about? You see, for those of us that get to learn to do this, it's about being expansion people. It's about expanding our world around us. It's about showing and teaching others this is what you can do. It's about moving from a world of survival, of power and control and money and wars and conflict and murdering and fighting, anxiety and pain. It's about moving from there, of moving into a world that you can have anything you want. And you get to be at peace in the process. Because if you're not at peace, it doesn't work very well for you. Because some people will learn how to do this and not have a strong state of peace, and they've created a lot of karmic chaos in their life. Let me just put it that way. For the masses, we will be sending the message, you have to be in a peaceful state. You have to be in a coherent state. You have to be in a loving state. You have to be in an expansion state. And that's what comes out of this. So that when something like this comes up that we've produced out of thin air, it means we have the ability to expand in the giving. Imagine this now taking place with tens of thousands, if not millions of people. And it will take us probably a decade or more to get to that spot. That's how we shift and change our world. That's how we bring peace to our world. That's how we create this new world that we want to live in, where we're in peaceful harmony with each other and we're living in a loving and caring environment. It's the natural expansion and extension of a heart consciousness-based lifestyle world. That's the third stage. Now, I'm continuing to read. I'm continuing to digest. I'm continuing to take all this stuff in. And you're going to get to learn this right along with me. And when the time is right, now I am very, very sensitive to this about when I get to start releasing these essays from Borden. I've had this stuff for 2.5 years, folks. I can remember when I first got it and I heard about that learn process. I was like, oh man, I wanted to learn that. Yes, right. Yeah, now, you know. You get all excited about it. You think it's something that's so great. Yeah, I'd really like to do that. But more important to me than doing it all now was going within the inner intuitive world, listening very clearly to the messages that was coming from the Holy Spirit about the timing and all this. And for 2.5 years, I've been waiting. 2.5 years I've been waiting. And it's now time that I get to start expanding this and start teaching this. And so this is what I love to do, folks. I've had many, many, many of you attend my workshops and say that one of my great gifts is I take very complex and abstract issues and I can bring them forward in ways that are somewhat simple to understand. And it's in the simplicity of the understanding that helps us to grasp it, to visualize it to make it happen for us. That's my gift. That's what I bring, and it's what I love to do. So it's a pleasure for me to be this and to share with this with you. But I always want to say thank you for trusting the timing of when it comes forward. You want to go learn on your own? Take a shot. I don't care, but don't go asking me because to release it beforehand, because I release it when I feel the Holy Spirit gives me the direction to release it. And this is the information I'm starting to incorporate now into my workshops. So if you come there, you're going to be picking up a lot more. Just about the money. When you came to the workshops, you got a much greater, bigger picture on the purpose and the understanding behind the funds being released. Well, if you come to the workshops, you're going to get a much bigger, greater picture there. And it's part of creating a team. It's part of creating a group of consciousness and awareness people who have a passion for all this. And that's why I do that. And the atmosphere at the workshops are always wonderful, but that's another story. But that's it, folks. That's our new expanding world that we're moving into. This is what we're getting ready to go into. And the learn process, what is called this Manifest Production Observership Program or process, is going to be one of those stages that we're going to be moving into. So as I said, the first stage was the information era. We're right smack dab in the middle of it now. The second stage is the money. We're right on the edge of that taking place. And at the same time, we're going to start learning how to do the third stage, which will automatically lead into the fourth and the fifth. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you tonight. That is the program. And Blanca, why don't you come back on the air and just share with us your thoughts, because you're always so wonderful at that. You did such a great job.
Well, thank you, and you did a great job. And wow, you just gave us a chunk full of information to digest. Um, but it adds, like you say, a bigger framework. Not about just the money, but you put it in context in terms of where we are going as a family of light beings who happen to be wearing a meat suit.
Yes.
And so, so, it's very exciting. And one thing, as you were talking and kind of breaking it down in the stages, is very helpful. But at the same time, I think if people kind of examine their experience, they'll probably see where, even though they may think, okay, I'm probably more in the first stage, and now I'm waiting to get the currency exchange and second stage, but the stages kind of tap into each other. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, let's say someone's working on heart consciousness, right? Just because they haven't gotten the currency exchange yet, they're not financially free, doesn't keep them from moving and really starting to wake up their heart consciousness, expanding their awareness, connect with their higher selves, that kind of thing, right? They can go
Yes.
right into that.
You can be moving in and out of each of those stages.
Right.
There's the ones that are primarily right in front of you that are what you would call the dominant one of the moment, but it doesn't mean that you can't move back or move forward for experiences that you might have. So, oh yeah, they're very fluid in moving, but there's growth processes where you start to move into, because you see, we're, as a collective, as humanity, we're dominantly in the first stage. And then there are scores of thousands of us ready to move into the second stage. We're right on the edge of it. And there's a very small percentage that are just starting to understand the third stage. So we can be in all three, if not even four, because there will be people that are in four. But it's fluid, but it's a progressive stages of development, but it's very fluid.
Correct. And the other thing is that people can look for clues, like if they start really actively looking for clues for some of the things you're talking about, that's another way to start deprogramming themselves from the conventional 3D reality and move into these more fluid, more expanded ways of being. I'm talking, for example, people have experienced synchronicities, right? Um, Things happen that you could say, well, I was just talking about X, and the next day it pops up, right? Without you even having to go after it. Well, that is a kind of a proof or an exhibit of how things can happen without you having to strive at it, work at it, push for it. and it is usually connected with a change of heart.
Yeah.
I can give you an example. There was one, let's put it, construction area. They were constructing a lot of homes and businesses and all, and it was quite congested. And I would have somewhat judgmental eyes about this, about how things are so congested and the traffic. And then I really photographed it. I said, Blanca, why do you have this judgmental negativity about this when really, if you're looking at this, a lot of people were able to sell bricks and lumber, and they were able to feed their families because they had great sales. And look at all these construction workers. And you see, so I caught myself with that attitude, and I switched it. Well, it's funny. The very next day, we got a call from a person who's opening the first restaurant in that very center, and he wanted us to help him with his sign.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
I told Alex, this is really strange because I just yesterday caught myself with not the most elevated attitude about this, and the very next day that pops up. See, so if you learn to recognize those things, don't you think, when you see like a synchronicity, that's kind of a proof that you do have this ability as a being to do these things.
Well, when I talk about having to undo the ego consciousness, the key to that is always catching yourself when you're there. Because
Right.
if you catch yourself when you're there, then you're able to immediately do the step to forgive that, to heal it and undo it. And it's the forgiveness process. And remember, forgiveness is about a change in perception, and that's exactly what you did. You had what I would call an ego consciousness perception of all this construction going on, and you caught yourself being
Right.
in that and switched it, and you changed your perception. You forgave the old self for what its thought process was, and allowed a new, more positive thought process to come forward, and then you saw the expansion of that, and that's what comes out of it. And I just don't. All I can say is that, and that's been the example of my life. Is for the last 5 and
Right.
6 years, I have been down more rabbit holes than people can just barely, hardly even comprehend or think about or imagine. But I think it's because I'm in this expansion consciousness stage, and I'm very, very good at catching myself to work through the forgiveness process. That's a real priority in my life. And the key is catching yourself. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do some dumb, stupid stuff. We always do that. That's part of being human. But the key is you find you're doing it less and less in your life, and you're catching yourself much more quickly, and you're moving through the undoing and forgiveness and healing process to let go of all that old energy-based stuff. And that's the real most important key, because that's your foundation. It's back to, the old baseball analogy. You got to go around 4 bases to score, and your first base, you can't get to second base without getting to first base. And that it means catching yourself is the first base step, is what it is. And then second base is letting it go, and so. But that's just an analogy. But that's so important. You got to catch yourself in what is called the ego consciousness process, then to let it go, and then do it.
And it's a constant because, of course, oops, I think I'm hearing an echo now. Hopefully that'll clear up.
I don't hear it on my end.
That'll clear up a little.
I don't hear it on my end, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. It's intermittent, so I think we're good right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think really the way you honed in on the work is really our opportunity right now. And it's even in the challenges, like you say, we've got to clear out a lot of cellular memory, a lot of ancestral memory. This is who we are.
Yeah.
And it's in our bones, it's in our cells, etc. There's a lot. People can do all kinds of research on that, both conventional and non-conventional medical practitioners, healers will talk about this thing. And so what one would recognize is, as one is going through challenges in life, it could be financial, or it could be health or relationship, we can look at these challenges as terrible obstacles, problems, nuisances, or we could look at them as, this is exactly what I have to heal. This is popping out in front of me because there's opportunity to heal this.
Yeah.
So we will have to elevate our consciousness. Of course, the miracle says forgiveness, right? Other teachers will call it something else. Um, but we've got to confront that and walk through that with the most elevated heart consciousness as possible. Well, this is very challenging, right? But that's if we're really trying to wake up and get into our total expanded consciousness, we've got to clear that, walk through it.
Yep.
And I know you've had some very challenging experiences and had to walk through it and clear it.
Yes, and and you're always going to have something coming up. And the key to understand is, see, when something comes up in front of your face during the day and it's kind of pressing your button, it's getting you a little bit irritated or agitated. Instead of looking at it as a pain and a headache, look at it as a gift. Because see, it's your soul that's bringing up something from your old past that's reflected in your common present moment that brings this to your attention to say, let it go, forgive it. So see it as a gift. I've come to understand that, I still have a couple people in my life that are kind of, button pressers. But in context with what the Course in Miracles says, they are my salvation sources. They are the sources that are bringing this stuff in front of me to do my salvation energy, my salvation work, healing myself of this old stuff that's down inside of me that Spirit has brought up in front of me, and they are the vehicle that's allowing that to happen. So you see, I don't see them as negative anymore. I see them as, oh, thank you for bringing that up to me. Because that just means that's just old stuff that I get to clear out and heal and to move on. And when you do that, then the expansion takes place. And I loved your illustration is that, when you change your mind from being, somewhat negative about the construction, realizing that it provided a gift for you as an income source is what it was. See, that's how we
Right.
become expansive in our thinking, and we're then developing expansive energy and expansive results out of that. And life becomes very expansive instead of survival based, is what it does. And life gets to be interesting, and life gets to be fun, and life does get the blessings that do come out of that. We talk a lot about what is called the law of attraction issues, and it's really interesting because in Gary Renard's latest book and the discussions he has with Arten and Persa, these two ascended masters, they say, look at what goes on. There's a whole lot of people talking about the law of attraction, but how often does it really happen? About 2% of the time. They can think, I want to do this, I want to attract, and then boom, 2% of the time they get something. Well, what they're basically saying is learn how to do the forgiveness process and watch that 2% expand, is what it is. Because you become very much more focused and much, much more clear, and you've removed the blocks from what it is that you want to bring forward in your lives. Whether it's energy issues, emotional issues, or physical issues. So, yeah.
And the other thing that is interesting is that these things that we still have to work on or clear, these challenges, and all of them have them. I do, and working through them. And it's a challenge to walk through these, learn from them, attempt to heal them, balance them with an active heart consciousness. But what it does give you the opportunity is to feel the difference. I can literally feel the difference when I'm trying to attack the issue with my mind or my brain. And then I'd say, I'm getting a little cuckoo with this, and I realize it's because I'm too much in my head.
Yeah.
And so I get back and do the breathing, get back into the heart, and it clears up. Part of the torment is just what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
And once you release that and get into your heart, you already have that sense of peace, and there's a different position from where to see these challenges and perhaps proceed in a more aware perspective.
I'm glad you brought up that whole concept about the breathing, technique, because that is such a powerful tool. When you've got something like drama going on in your mind, just stop, and then start that breathing process. That what's called that quantum pause breathing process, 4-stage step process, and it's amazing how much it just clears out what is called, the ego-based mind. It clears it out and lets you go within and be able to start doing it. That is such a powerful tool, the quantum breathing process, to help you shift and change.
Right. And now the thing that you also to us was, even though we're thinking about this, we're thinking about expanded consciousness, we're thinking about things that we're going to shift into and move into, could take decades, etc. We still are going to experience the third dimension,
Yes.
but it's going to be from a different perspective, and our experience of it is going to be very different.
Mhm. As long as we're still in physical bodies and we haven't moved into our light bodies, then we're still going to experience a physical three-dimensional world, and we will still have to live within its, its constraints, if that's the appropriate term to use, because we have not unprogrammed the old programming that's deep, 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 deep down into our unconscious minds to allow us to move into an enlightened state, or basically a light body state. When you get your light body state, when you get to be like Jesus was after the resurrection, then you're pretty much free from the physical world. Until then, we have to deal with it. And I remembered,
Right.
talking about this once, and this one person says, well, if the world isn't real, if it's just holographic, then what's its purpose? Why do we have to go through this? And it says, the gift of the world of form is it brings up the stuff in front of us to undo and heal the deep unconscious part of us that we're not aware of. It's the value of the everyday journey. It's the value of the experiences that we go through on the journey of throughout the day that brings up all the stuff that gives us an opportunity how we're going to react to it, and what we're going to project, and what we're going to undo, and what we're going to allow to expand. That's what the world does to us. And it doesn't really matter whether you think that you're in the third dimension or the fifth dimension. You can think all you want that you're moving on into and you're going through your ascension process to the fifth dimension. Great. But you still got an ego consciousness in your fifth dimension as well. And that still has to be undone. And at some point in time, for you to really, truly move into what is called an enlightened body state. But so the physical world has value to us. And I can remember this time I was I was talking with some other really good friends, and I was also I was sharing a conversation about these moments of what I call really deep focused meditation and prayer that I had. And I was asking, I says, why are we in this physical world? What is it that's so special about this? Why all this deep contrast of the physicality and the pain that we go through? And it was so clear where the Holy Spirit came back and says, you just don't understand the value of a third dimensional world in contrast to beings that are in other dimensions. The third dimensional world creates great contrast in all of your experiences and your emotions and your feelings and how you process that. And that contrast, it's what puts you on the fast track of undoing all the old ego consciousness. If you want to move into a full, complete light body state, the fastest way to get there is to be here on Earth in third dimensional form. Because we have this world of physicality, we have greater contrast, which puts us on a fast track for our healing and undoing process, is what it does. So that's the value of this.
We were talking about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said that's the value of this world that we live in. This is the best place to be on the fast track to move into what is called your light body enlightened state.
Right. It's funny when you were mentioning that, because the third dimension does have a lot of challenges, polarities, contrasts that we have to really resolve it within ourselves.
Yes.
Really is what that's about, even though it looks like it's external. But the story, I believe it's Ruby who talks about the beautiful oriental carpet, and it's hanging, and the owner is just beating it with a broom, and the carpet is complaining, why are you beating it? He goes, well, I'm trying to get the dust out of you and the dirt out of you so that your brilliant colors will shine through again. And I thought, that sounds like life.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, it does
Right?
sound like life. And you see, but the beating is all based on your perception. It's how you choose
Right.
to perceive it. You can choose it as a perception of being beaten, or you can choose it like I'm someone who's going to physically exercise my body to basically improve my performance. and you can look at it in that manner.
Right. I'm going through a cleansing
That's right.
process.
Yeah,
Or I'm
yeah.
going through a refining process. Or I'm going through a healing process. So, so we do have the power to put our lives into perspective. So whether they're challenges or whether they're great gifts of experience, if we take them all as for the purpose of our awakening, let's put it that way, or
Yeah.
for the purpose of our expansion, that's quite an empowered perspective to go through life. Hard to maintain consistently, but I think the sooner we can get back on our footing in that perspective, the more empowered I believe we'll feel.
And it's also subjective. It's pain is very subjective. Suffering is very subjective, and
Oh yes,
it's all subjective. It's all how you choose to perceive it. So
right. There's one teacher, Gurdjieff, who used to say most of our suffering is imaginary suffering,
yeah,
and he says many people the last thing they want to let go of is their suffering. So we've got to examine that as well.
yeah. So well, I notice we don't have anybody that have chosen to call in. But it is available for you folks if you would like to call in to ask questions or make comments. That the call-in number is 515-605-9356. Again, it's 515-605-9356. And you touch one on your touch tone phone, and that lets us know that you have some questions or some comments that you would like to make. And but right now we don't have anybody. So if we don't get anybody coming up here in
Right.
probably the next 20 or 30 seconds, we just might be done for the night unless there's more things you want to share for us.
Well, let's see if somebody pops up. But you did cover a lot, Dave, and these are things that are for those people who are already thinking about this, maybe already studying or experiencing it. I think it's really good food for thought, and especially what's kind of exciting is the idea that you said, how about if we thought of ourselves as a team, right?
Yeah.
We're all going to, when the time's right, obviously, experience this currency exchange. Well, it'd be great if we were as finely tuned heart consciousness as possible, right? And as healed as possible, and working on some of these more wonderfully expanded potentials. We go through our, freedom from financial slavery, and I think people should really also really understand what that's about, because that's been a model in place for a very long time. So we are going to be part of the breaking of that.
Yes.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I'm not seeing anybody come up. Are you? Oh, there was just one.
It
Just
looks
did.
like someone with. Right. Let's see what they've got to say.
Okay.
You want to just pick them up and.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're all ones, which means they don't have an actual area code out there. But we'll go to them. We're going to go to the one person that just came in. This is Dave. You're on the air with us. What can we do? What can we help you with tonight?
Hi, Dave. It's Shelley calling from British Columbia.
Yes. How are you?
Good, thank you. And I'm calling in because I have one comment, and that is thank you.
Well, thank you for the comment. I mean, that's well appreciated. So glad you're doing that. But yeah.
My girlfriend and I have been diligently following you for over 2 years now, and we've been to a couple of your workshops, and I plan on coming to your workshop in November in Seattle. And thank you so much. You were an absolute godsend, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that. I just, I do what I know I'm supposed to do and what I love to do, and this is the results that comes out of it. And thank you again for the,
And you are so on the right track, and thank you for guiding me in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Well,
I love you.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Shelley.
evening.
Thank you very much for your comments. Very, very
Bye-bye.
well appreciated. Bye-bye. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next caller. His name is Mike with the phone number, area code 631. Mike, you're on the air. What can we help you with tonight?
Yes, good evening, Dave. Well, of course, I want to thank you for all you do, but I just had a quick question, a simple question to do with curiosity more than anything. You'd mentioned recently that you'd suddenly realized that you needed to block out the weekend of November 10th and 11th as far as workshops. I just wondered, is that, would you mind telling us if that's, personal reasons or anything to do with business, the
Personal.
exchanges, or
Has
the
not
RV
has.
or anything?
It's all personal with some friends, of a get together with some friends that was very important in my life, and so that's why I moved the workshop from November, I think 10th out back out to the 17th, is because that weekend there's other people I want to be with. That has nothing to do with currencies or any of that stuff. Nothing to do with business. So
Okay,
okay,
that was easy enough. Thanks very much.
alrighty, okay, you bet. Thanks.
And,
Okay.
thanks, Dave.
Yep. Okay, Blanca. I don't see anybody else.
No, I think that's it.
I think we're ready to be done for the night then. Okay.
All right. Sounds
And
good.
we will then see everybody next week. Thank you very much, folks, for having an absolute wonderful program tonight. Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.